Welcome back to another Capital Conversation. I'm Colin Day, Certified Financial Planner Professional, and with me today is Marquita Thomas. Marquita, welcome.
Hi, I'm Marquita, Client Associate here at Correct Capital Wealth.
We're very excited to have Marquita today. We wanted to do something a little bit different than talking about the tried and true financial planning topics of the day. We wanted to talk a little bit more about what we do within our office, but maybe some of the things that aren't normally visible, let's say, in the office. Do you think that's fair?
Yes, definitely.
You're more of the behind the scenes, I would say, in a lot of ways, until you're forced into the scene.
Correct. Yes.
I think it's a pretty accurate way of describing it. Marquita, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been doing here at Correct Capital, just so people can get to know you a little bit.
A little bit about me. I have been in the financial industry a little bit over 20 years, more closer maybe to 24, doing different jobs within usually operations. Worked at Wells for about 12 years in operations. Before that, I worked at Smith Barney as not a client associate, but actual senior operations, so doing a lot of operational duties that have changed now. So a little bit about me and what I do here at Correct Capital.
Mm-hmm.
What I do here at Correct Capital, client associate to our fine FAs here. When I come in the morning, I usually start out my day with behind the scenes stuff that clients don't see, like checking what we call our notifications. I go through our system that we use, and notifications tells me things like money that has come in as far as deposits, money that has gone out as far as us paying out checks or periodic scheduled payments. Lets me know if funds are running short for periodic payments.
Mm-hmm.
Also things like things that are not in good order, maybe some paperwork that we had submitted, something may be an issue. But I check all those, my notifications, and go through those and make sure whatever needs to be addressed is addressed.
Yeah.
I check my emails and address those or respond. And I also do what we call our workflows. And workflows are typically requests that we have gotten from clients as far as sending funds out or possibly setting up something to send funds out or even bringing funds in as well. Could be opening new accounts, any type of request that a client may have had. We typically are doing those through what we call our workflows now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and if I may, I would consider the folks in our operations group, to be traffic controllers in a way.
Yes.
You're delegating when necessary, making the outbound phone calls, making sure that the planes land the places where they're supposed to land and not the places where they're not supposed to land.
Yes.
And that's, when we say back office or we say operations, you are front-facing with a lot of our clients. And most of our clients, of course, are going to know the financial advisor that they work with because that's probably the person who they met the very first day that they came here. But the reality is that our team is a lot larger than just some of the financial advisors here. Our firm in total, where we stand today, is 10 people. We have a few advisors, but then we also have pretty much the same equivalent in operations folks. So we want to celebrate those people that are actually doing a lot of the hand-holding with our clients.
Yes.
And if there was a sensitive thing that I would say, and I'll let you provide your own opinion, if I was to say, here's the most sensitive thing that our clients need to know about their funds and how we're handling things, it's that when we get a request for money, that is a incredibly time-sensitive thing. It is a thing that cannot get messed up and needs to happen within the time period.
Yes.
You would agree that that's probably the most, of all the things that are sensitive that you're handling on a day-to-day basis, would it be that or do you have something else in mind?
I would definitely say when clients request funds, usually it's for a reason. So they're expecting to get it in a timely fashion. So time is important with that because obviously we know the market closes at 3 and sometimes the funds are not available. So we may have to do trades. So if you're calling in after 3 and funds happen to not be available, that would definitely put us on the next business day as far as even doing trades. And then of course we have to have the funds settled before we could send them out. And depending on how we're sending the funds, of course that could take a couple more days too as far as ACH clearing their bank accounts. versus wire is, of course, a same-day transaction. So definitely one of the top important requests.
And also, I mean, communicating that to our clients is incredibly important so that they understand the timeline. Because again, like you said, people don't call willy-nilly for funds just for the sake of, putting money in their bank account. It's, they have a concern. They have a contractor that they have to pay. Tuition bill is coming due, just to use some examples. In terms of your communication strategy then, so thinking about how you get a request, and maybe it comes from the advisor, maybe an advisor forwards on a request for funds or something where you're the master of that domain. What do you think is most important for our clients to know about, and how are you communicating that to them through that process?
Good question. I actually had a great example yesterday.
Please.
Got a phone call, or rather, I should say an email actually from Brian that he forwarded on to me.
Brian is financial advisor here at the firm.
Sorry.
You may already know, but I'm just going to say it out loud. Go ahead, please.
Yes, the client actually forgot to pay their child's tuition that was due on the 15th of this month, August. So there was urgency within the request. It did happen to be after 3 p.m. that they called in. And he put a note that said, just get it there as quickly as possible. So I did my due diligence, called and got the gist on how can we get this process quickly. We had two options, like earlier in the day, a little more expensive by $2, which I didn't think the client would care, to get an overnight versus maybe later in the day for $10. However, again, it was after 3. So I made the call to get the request going and got the gist on, hey, when can we expect the funds to land? So I was told that, unfortunately, obviously we were on the next day, which meant that today is the day they're processing it. So since today is processing, unfortunately, Monday, being that today is a Friday, Monday is actually the day that the check will be sent out, and it would arrive Tuesday. So once I confirmed all that, got the gist on how much it would cost to do the overnight, I made sure everything was processed, got back in touch with the client by email, just letting him know, hey, we've requested it. It's going to be a $12 charge for the overnight. And he was fine with that. So expect the funds to land Tuesday. And sometimes I go a little extra, so I asked them if there's a way I can call them back to get the tracking number, and I will do that as well, just to follow through and make sure the check actually gets there on Tuesday.
Great. I think that's a really good example of what we try to do from a client service perspective, is that, hey, something happened, and now we need to expedite. And then what are the things that we can do where we can coach the client on, here's the reality of the situation, here are the options that are available. We're all about options here. And then they choose the best one for them, and then we act on it. And not only do we act on it, but we make sure that they're aware of it throughout the process. I think that's really important. Something we have been working on with other members of the operations team are the workflows that you mentioned. So we use a software that helps us arrange, okay, when something happens that a client has a need, so whether it's as complicated as creating new accounts, trades, bringing somebody on board, all those types of things, we have a system in place so that it goes to the right party so that it's done well. And throughout those workflows, there are touch points with the client to make sure that they're aware of things. So not to change gears too much, I want to talk about what you've been tasked with more recently, which is onboarding. So some of the things that we've been working on internally is trying to raise the level of our onboarding. And so what we mean by that is that when we identify an individual or a family that wants our services, we need to bring them in, and we want to wow them immediately. And so we're trying to figure out exactly what that looks like. And Marquita's been our person that's been the go-to on all of our onboarding recently. So one, I'll ask you, how's that going? And two, do you notice some areas, not to challenge you a little bit, but if you notice any areas where we can improve our onboarding experience so far?
Definitely. So far, so good overall. We're definitely at the beginning, so we're still working out a few kinks here and there. And as we come across those situations, we just discuss them and say, hey, this is how maybe we should or could change this to better fit the scenarios. So ways that we can improve it, I would say the process is pretty good overall. Again, because it's fairly new, we're working on ironing out kinks when those come up. And we've got our new associate with us, Jordan, who is also front facing with our clients. So he's usually the first person that the clients are communicating with, and he's gathering most of the information that's required for us to get the process started. So that's great to have everything already ready to go versus we've been told that we have a new client, but we don't really have anything to start with. So gathering the statements, the pertinent information, birthdays, social address, bennies, and all those good things are definitely a positive and a plus to the onboarding versus chasing, paperwork if we don't have it and trying to figure what exactly type of accounts we may be opening. So
yeah, and if you're listening or watching this and thinking like, what is Marquita referring to? If you've never had to onboard somebody or to move your financial advisor even, it can be a thing. It's not, unfortunately, it's not something where firms play nicely. They move everything all at once. We get all the information the first time. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of legwork that needs to be done by the new client because we need account statements.
Right.
We can't just call them up and say, please send this over to us. They won't do that. We've tried.
Correct.
It's for security reasons, of course. But ultimately, we have to do some hand-holding with the client. So a question back to you then, Marquita, would be, in terms of if an individual is interested in coming on board or is changing advisors, what do you think is important to communicate to them up front so that you're setting their expectations?
Up front, just letting them know that it is a process. And of course, different firms have different turnaround times as far as how quickly things may happen. In my experience, some go really fast versus some straggle a little bit more and may need additional paperwork and things like signature guarantees and things like that, just depending on what type of account it is. Versus sometimes we just have a clean cut in-kind transfer. You open an account, submit it, and within a week, everything may be here. Again, versus some firms, it requires a little bit more paperwork, may require a three-way call with the client, depending on the type of account, more so for 401ks. Usually we can never just move that over. The client always has to be involved some way, shape, or form. So.
Yeah, I think setting the expectations up front that, hey, this is you're making a big decision by, coming on board with us, and we take that very seriously. And because this is a very big thing to do, it's not something that you could just do. It's like buying a car in some ways, and I don't mean that to disparage the car dealership community, but rather just to say it's like if somebody's interested in a car, you're still going to haggle, you're still going to talk to somebody, you're still going to have to go through financing, you're still going to have to do the title and the registration. There's many steps that need to be done.
Yes.
Yeah. So and we haven't even gotten into insurance contracts or annuities or things like that, and that process takes even longer. We're not even going to talk about that today. I'll save you there.
Thank you.
But if I think maybe we'll wrap up there, Marquita. Is there anything else from a communication side that you would like to talk about with individuals? Is there anything on your mind that if you were to say, like, all right, if I could say one thing in this podcast today to our clients or to individuals that are interested in financial planning, or even for those people that are interested in our industry and want to join a firm like ours in the future, any words of wisdom that you have to share? And I know that's a huge, completely open-ended question that you probably weren't prepared for.
Words of wisdom, I would say just always keep an open mind, remain positive. Sometimes the situation may not be as bad as it seems.
Good life advice in general, I would say.
Yes, but for me, I'd say I'm learning a lot in my processes as well, but once I've experienced something, I'm usually a little bit more at ease versus my first time around. So I may get a little excited when something doesn't happen as quickly as I think it should, but doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. I'd say just keep an open mind, patience, and positivity.
That's awesome. I love it. And that is the perfect demeanor to have, I think, in a role like yours.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, for Marquita, again, I'm Colin Day. Thanks so much for joining us on Capital Conversations, and we'll see you next time.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Correct Capital Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Correct Capital Wealth Management and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Correct Capital Wealth Management unless a client service agreement is in place.